Welcome to Hacking TV. I'm Steve Rosenbaum, and this week, special guest host Bernie Gershon is joining us. We're going to talk about Star Wars and Disney. Will Luke save ABC?
The CBS Viacom Saga. Is the path clear to new leadership now set?
And is the future of TV a whole new genre? Will you stream what's in your refrigerator?
I hope so. And Comcast may have just released a way to build a super fast internet.
Alrighty, so welcome Bernie, howdy.
Hey, how are you, Steve? Happy New Year.
I am excellent. Happy New Year to you, and a big streaming New Year it's going to be. I realized I probably should have asked you this before we started recording, but I'll put you on the spot. You were with ABC for a long time. Do you consider yourself are you a loyalist, or are you willing? Are you always going to support ABC no matter what they do?
Well, as a former employee and, in full disclosure, a shareholder, I'm supportive, but obviously I'm not being paid at the moment by ABC Disney, so I'm not a yes man. And as you can tell, I'm a huge Star Wars fan.
So Star Wars came out. The numbers are spectacular. It just crossed $1 billion. So why doesn't that erase all of the sins of ABC? Why doesn't it just really put them on the road? Because the franchise is going to now run forever and mint money.
So you're talking about the ESPN sub losses, or ABC the TV network, or what piece are you looking to make up for?
All right. So there was an analyst report that you didn't agree with on Facebook.
Yes.
Rich Greenfield said, essentially Star Wars will not save the ESPN losses.
So Rich Greenfield seems to me to ignore the fact that there are so many things going on that are positive for Disney. Yes, ESPN has lost subs, and cord cutting is real, and we can talk about that, and cord cutting will continue over the course of time, but ESPN is still the biggest single cash driver inside the Walt Disney Company. And as you mentioned up top, Star Wars just this past weekend was the first movie ever to break $1 billion in global box office in that short a period of time. And my prediction is, and again, based on a little bit of fact and gut and the fact that it's a great movie, that it will break Avatar's record of $2.7 billion in worldwide gross and break $3 billion.
So, and you got it right at the very beginning, which is when you say ABC, Disney, ESPN, the theme parks, the television channels, it's hard to make any sensible prognostication about what is now a big, massive business with lots of moving parts.
Yeah, and certainly, when I read Rich Greenfield's article, I read most of it. He didn't seem to mention the fact that the Shanghai theme park is opening soon, which will be the biggest, ultimately the biggest park Disney has ever opened, and the fact that there's probably going to be a new Star Wars movie coming out every 18 months or 2 years for eternity. And the consumer products piece, even conservative estimates are the consumer products for Star Wars are going to be $6 to $8 billion additional on top of the box office. And then I just add that in buying Lucasfilms for the bargain price of $4 billion, they have not even started to relaunch the Indiana Jones franchise. So again, a lot of moving parts. And if I were investing in a big media company that has a lot of the challenges around OTT and MVPD sub losses in cable and satellite, et cetera, I would rather be at Disney than at Viacom.
Well, we'll get to Viacom in a minute. But I want to so let me give you the keys. So now you're at ESPN, and all of a sudden, one of the things that's really interesting is I think you could have argued that people saw cord cutting coming, but they thought it was going to be a longer, slower transition. And mobile's really kind of added a complication to that. You've got particularly young people watching enormous amounts of video on their phones. They're watching shorter video, and they're used to paying for things, whether it's through some kind of a subscription, or doesn't ESPN really have to suck it up and take some losses and not see cable as its future, and go to an over the top strategy fast?
So I think, again, a part of the good and the bad of having billions of dollars coming in from cable companies is your hands are somewhat tied about what new additional product you can offer. So as long as Comcast and Time Warner and Charter and the others, Cablevision, et cetera, are paying ESPN whatever the sub fee is for ESPN, they can't go direct to consumer with that exact product. However, they could come up with additional either sports. Again, I'm not going to make a joke about shuffleboard being or ping pong being the start of ESPN, but they have enough brand value that they could create an over the top. They did do something about a year ago for the Cricket World Series, or I don't know cricket that well, but it was some big international cricket thing where they offered it over the top direct to consumer. So I think that will come. And I think Disney on the sort of other end of the spectrum is experimenting around the world with direct to consumer offerings. And obviously, I think 2016 is going to be the year when almost all of the major programmers start to offer something over the top, whether it's HBO offering 100% of what they offer to you as a cable subscriber over the top, or other networks offering some piece of the bundle. I think that's going to happen more and more.
So you're based on Rich Greenfield's sell tag. You're not taking his stock advice and dumping your ABC stock.
If you look and you could post the 5-year chart for Disney stock, and it looks like this. The 1-year chart is pretty good too. It's definitely up over a year. So I don't think his price target of 90. I think it's complete bullshit.
All right, one more Disney question, then we'll move on to other things. So they're getting out of Fusion.
Yep. Well, that was the report was that they're negotiating to get out of it. That's what I read in the Wall Street Journal.
Right. So Fusion was originally a Hispanic targeted network, and then did a weird kind of shuffle to become a millennial targeted network, and now they've decided that partnership is, I don't even know what, too complex, or just not a marriage they want to stay in. I guess what surprised me, frankly, about that was when Fusion was announced, my immediate reaction was, that's a great target audience. It's a growing target audience. Disposable income is growing. Like, it seemed to me like if they'd run that, if that partnership had worked right, that was a category that didn't have a winner in it yet.
So I don't know enough, and I'm not inside and haven't been for years, to say what went wrong. But sort of if we're, you make fun of my Facebook posts, if you're saying, what was that partnership, I would say #disaster. Yeah. But they're not losing billions of dollars. I mean, if you look at whatever the filing is that Univision did, is maybe $100 million in cumulative losses since 2012. But it just didn't work out. And to your point, is the Hispanic market a great target? Yes. Do Hispanics over-index for smartphones? Yes. I mean, maybe you probably don't need a cable network, sort of a traditional cable network, yeah. On channel 197 is, okay, deliver the product through Go90 on Verizon or some other way that's delivering the content. And I also, want to circle back, and you talked about sort of the growth in wireless and possibly the growth of 5G and the ability to create skinny bundles to deliver over 5G. I think the opportunity back to ESPN there is to sort of be part of those skinny bundles like they are with Dish, and to offer a consumer's content delivered over the mobile networks at a subscription fee.
And by the way, we don't really know what happened, but when Verizon announced that there was an ESPN skinny bundle in one of their packages, there was a bunch of shots back and forth in the press about, we didn't give them permission, it's not in our deal. And then that all kind of went away. And ESPN's still in there.
I think they announced that they were suing, so I'm not 100% sure, but I know the lawyers were involved.
In any case. All right, yeah. So now you teased CBS earlier, so let's get into CBS. There was a report that some paperwork that was not supposed to be public had made its way to the public, and that Sherry Redstone's choice for the new chairman of, and again, we both read the same article, either CBS, Viacom, or just CBS. It wasn't really clear, but certainly CBS was not going to be Philippe Dumaine, but it was in fact going to be Les Moonves. Not a huge surprise.
Well, not a huge surprise given the various stock positions of both companies. Viacom stock, again, I don't have the chart in front of me, but Viacom stock is off probably about 50% in the last year. CBS is is up or just down a tiny bit based on the fact that all the media stocks got hit in the past 6 months. And certainly, Les Moonves looks like he's forward-thinking and has launched an OTT thing, CBS All Access, which they haven't given out sub-numbers, but definitely is a smart thing to do. They've announced that they're going to do Star Trek, a new version of Star Trek. I don't know if they've announced the name yet, if it's Next Generation 2 or whatever it is, but they're going to do that as part of the package. I think that's all smart. And I think that, the only thing that Philippe Dumont did was buy back stock.
So, but the thing that got leaked, and Sherry's attorney was kind of frosty about it, was a document that said that she had committed to Moonves that once her dad was no longer in charge, that she would, I guess she had control over that chairmanship, and that she was tapping him as her choice, and that's a legal document.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that if you've read, and I've been voraciously consuming a lot of these articles, it's difficult to say what's a real document and what's a fake document. And if you look at Sumner's signature on one document a year ago versus his signature this year, it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the signatures was basically a scroll down the side of a page. So I think it's very confusing. There's a trust or something that Philippe is supposed to run, including sort of health proxy. The whole thing is confusing and quite a soap opera, with Sumner throwing the two girlfriends out of the house. It just is becoming, sort of fodder for, a Hollywood blockbuster.
But,
or if not a blockbuster, at least something like a version of House of Cards.
But what's concerning is that the stock price is not simply reflective of Sumner's lack of engagement. It's reflective of Viacom not being run very well. I mean, at least that from a media insider point of view, it seems like they're not doing enough to get with the changes that are happening in their industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you look at the companies that are growing and doing well, they've got leverage, they've got multiple channels, and they have what used to be referred to by NBC in the heyday of Seinfeld. They have must-see TV. And I think if you look at what is on Viacom, whether it's MTV or Spike or Nickelodeon or any of those channels, there's not anything that you could point to. I mean, even Jersey Shore, which was a hit at the time, is long gone. There's nothing there that a cable operator or a consumer will say, I have to watch that. Yeah, no. And I'll pay to watch it.
Yeah, no, it's true. And Real World as well. All those are, yes. So let's talk about... There were two strange competing articles, one in the New York Times and one in Wired. Wired launched into this whole speech about people broadcasting their refrigerator. I mean, do you know anyone that does that?
They were talking about Periscope and Meerkat,
yes.
And I think it was the hashtag "What's in my refrigerator" or something like that. And no, I've seen a few of those. I mean, I enjoy Periscope, but I think both of those articles sort of rambled into the future of streaming and the fact that we'll call them TV shows, but new shows released by Netflix or Amazon, and even some of the major programmers are now coming out all 10 episodes or 13 episodes at a time, and they don't have to be 30 minutes or 23 minutes to cut for commercials. They can be 22 minutes. I mean, I just watched a couple of episodes of a very funny series that I found through a friend on Facebook today called Namaste Bitches, which is just funny, about sort of making fun of people who are into yoga, LA yoga, and sort of the whole lifestyle. And each episode was around 4 to 5 minutes. It's not a fixed time. And then I think one of those articles talked about sort of a lot of the great programming that's coming out now, and whether it's Narcos on Netflix or Jessica Jones, which I'm into. It's a Marvel show that's on Netflix. I watched a couple seasons of Orphan Black on Amazon Prime. It's almost if you look at a list of like what are the shows that you might want to watch on video, whether it's video from a traditional programmer like Empire on Fox or some of these others that I referred to, there's almost too much to watch, which is, I guess, a good problem for a consumer.
So the Times headline said, streaming TV isn't just a new way to watch, it's a new game, a new genre. And I will say I find that I'm watching TV very differently. And I mean, when I get into a series, I'm going to watch it every night until I get through every episode. And I just finished Broadchurch, and found myself, excited about wanting to see the next episode tomorrow. Or, and had to be good and not watch two in a night, because that's insane, and then you don't get any sleep. But it does definitely, the idea that the shape of television is changing. It's getting live. It's getting shorter. People are, I have to say, I'd never heard of anyone streaming their refrigerator, and I'm not sure I understand the entertainment value of that.
So, Steve, you raised a couple of interesting questions, which is, what is the future of video entertainment? And I sort of, I push back at people who say, hey, TV's dead, or traditional TV is dead, or whatever. It's high quality video programming. We're in a golden age of high quality video programming, and it's coming from multiple sources. Traditional TV networks have been around for 75 years, like ABC and Fox and CBS, and even CBS putting Star Trek Online, to Netflix, putting up the House of Cards, to Namaste Bitches. I could not tell you where that came from. And then you talk about sort of other like really niche things. And I must say that several times on Periscope, partly because I try to sort of become familiar with what's going on, but a couple times I watched Al Roker, who's on Periscope, showing live video of him cooking a steak for his dog in his kitchen. It's hilarious, and there are like a couple hundred people watching Al Roker and making comments. So
hold on. I want to go back to Al Roker is feeding steak to his dog.
Well, I think it was a little bit of like, I'm making steak, and it's sort of a little bit for you, a little bit for me,
right,
sort of the gist of it. But he was somehow, it was a Friday night, I remember watching this, and he's at home making steak.
So how did you find that? This is what I don't get about these little micro channel live show. So you went on to Periscope and typed in Al Roker, or
I went on to Periscope and opened the app, and it said live now, and it sort of gives you, what's live now, and it said, hey, live now, somebody in the Philippines doing the beach, and I could care less, and it said Al Roker making steak dinner. I'm like, oh, what the hell? I'll watch Al Roker for 5 minutes. Shows you how exciting my Friday nights are.
I'm a little speechless. But here's what's interesting about that. So when you look at that list of names of people that are live on Periscope, there's 5 or 6 names you've never heard of, and then there's Al Roker, and you're, oh, well, I know that guy, and he's on TV. So it does tend to mean that people who are inside mainstream media get a leg up on all these new forms, because we haven't really done a great job of solving discovery. I mean,
right.
Namaste Bitches, I might want to watch, but it's going to take some serious Googling for me to even find where that file lives.
Right. I think you just Google Namaste Bitches, you'll find it pretty easily.
I might find some other things that I find inappropriate as well.
Probably would.
So I don't, there's no part of me that believes that television is over, or that, in fact, I think, one of my favorite words is curation, and I happen to believe that in a world of too much information, what the audience really wants is trusted sources that say, we do a good job. And I find pawing around in Meerkat or Periscope daunting. And I wish that somebody would turn it into I wish there would be a Bernie's best, streams. But the problem is that those streams they're ephemeral, right? They come and go, and they aren't really shows in the way that we are used to consuming them.
Yeah, I mean, I feel exactly the same way, Steve. And I think that whether you're talking about cable operators, I think of the ones that I've played with, Comcast does the best job of sort of helping you find stuff, whether it's live stuff or on-demand stuff, and then you can search by network or search by show or search by what other people are looking at. I think Netflix obviously will surface stuff based on what I've watched before. So if I watched House of Cards, obviously they're going to show me more Kevin Spacey stuff. But if I wanted to, the only way I found, not to go back to Namaste Bitches again, but the only way I found that is one of my friends on Facebook posted it as like, hey, I just found this. It's cool, watch it. And then otherwise, I'll save articles, whether you post an article or somebody from the LA Times or Washington Post or somebody post an article and said, here are 10 great shows on video in 2015, and they're from Amazon or Netflix or regular TV, and I'll save that article. I mean, that's sort of my personal curation is what can I find, and then I'll sample them, and then either DVR them or download them or plan to watch them.
So let's talk about Netflix versus Amazon for a minute, because you posted the other day that for you, Amazon's ability to download and watch files that when you're not online is really meaningful. And I don't think that's gotten a lot of coverage. How does that change your behavior for airplanes, just for not having to, what is it just for travel? What makes the downloadable file a better experience for you than Netflix?
Well, certainly if you're traveling on a plane, even if you pay for the exorbitant prices for GoGo or somebody else, they will not let you stream video, whether it's Netflix or HBO or anything else. So that's definitely a use case, and I travel a fair amount, so I find that useful. But even just sort of roaming around Manhattan, where you don't want to pay the data charge over the wireless network, to be able to download 5 shows at home and be, okay, I got a half an hour to kill, let me watch something. It's very useful, and I kind of don't understand why Netflix is, at least public comments I've read, they've said, hey, it's like, we don't think that our consumers want to do that. I mean, I'm thinking if you've got, whether I'm watching not House of Cards, that's Netflix, but Orphan Black or Transparent or something else, or the Man in the High Tower. What's the one about if the Nazis won?
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like, that's another program that I would find interesting, and have downloaded a couple episodes but haven't gotten around to watching it yet. But the Netflix guys are saying, hey, we don't think that's a consumer use case. I think they're wrong, or they haven't been able to negotiate the right deals. But I think, and also the use case beyond travelers, sorry Steve, the use case beyond travelers is you got a kid in the backseat of a car, you want to give them a video to watch over and over again. It's so much easier to have it downloaded and not have to pay for it to download. There's a ton of kid stuff on Amazon.
So listeners of this podcast have heard this story, but I'll tell you just because it's relevant. I was at Montclair State University a couple of weeks ago talking about Go90 versus Watchable, and I just, no one had seen either. None of the millennials had seen either. I said, Go90 is going to give you 2 gigabytes of free data for 3 months if you download the app. And I watched in their eyes, like I think that and it's also the T-Mobile thing, I think, is another piece of that, the ability to binge without data charges. I think that we've all gotten bad bills, and we've all either traveled and gotten a bad data bill, and so there's some scar tissue for every time you're watching something that's online, even if it's only $10-15 extra. Like, there's something about feeling like there's a meter running and you can't see it that's a little uncomfortable. And I think that Amazon did the right thing. My guess, and I don't have any information on this, is that Netflix's deals, are structured such that they can't, or that there's a huge infrastructure change for them. But I would be shocked if they weren't thinking about some way to address that down the road.
Yeah, I think it's a great use case, and I think there are multiple ways where it makes sense. And to your point about data charges, I mean, I was a user of Aereo before they were shut down, and I was using it on my iPad that I was getting data charges, and I watched a couple hours of shows during the course of a month, and my bill was crazy.
Yeah. All right, so there's a little followed bit of Comcast news that I figured would be good to geek out on. So Comcast this week announced that they had successfully tested DOCSIS 3.1. I can't even really say it without feeling like but essentially it's, here. So this is a tech insider.
If you know what DOCSIS stands for, I'll send you $10.
Yeah, no, I have no idea. But it, here's what the article says. This probably sounds like mumbo jumbo to you, so let's put it in simple terms. Comcast has figured out how to use its existing cable lines to deliver super fast gigabit internet speeds without having to do major work on its infrastructure. If that's true, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea how it works. I mean, between you and me, it means you're compressing more bits into the pipe that's going into the home and giving you faster internet speeds. And that's sort of my best explanation of it. I remember years ago I went to a a CTAM conference, and I accidentally walked into a CTAM event where they were talking about the difference between DOCSIS 1.0 and DOCSIS 2.0, and I quickly ran out,
Yeah.
screaming.
Well, this is DOCSIS 3.0.
3.1.
So, 3.1. So it's even more
Better.
DOCSIS stuff. But I do think, if you look, anyone who's got Google Fiber, like, gets all giddy and happy about how awesomely amazing it is. And, for, Comcast and Charter and Time Warner, all those guys to look at needing to, rewire essentially the United States of America with fiber is a daunting and expensive undertaking, particularly if you read, as I did earlier in the week, that broadband usage is actually now leveling off, and the real growth is in wireless. So if Comcast really figured out a neat way to make their broadband systems dramatically better without having to throw a ton of cash at infrastructure, you still need a new modem though. So there's still going to have to be, that horrible chore of trading out the device and getting the new device. But it could make them, your living room's best friend.
Well, and the other thing is, with Xfinity, Comcast has offered the service to other people. I think they have a deal with Cox. So assuming that this in fact works, and it's a fairly simple thing to do and doesn't require a truck roll, is they could then offer this to Cox and Charter and Time Warner and all the other cable companies, so that then you have sort of fully distributed, the high-speed data is much faster, allowing you and me to watch, the whole entire season of, whatever, Namaste bitches in 5 seconds.
So last but not least,
yeah.
In the devices, one of the things I think that makes this moment in technology interesting is, manufacturers can build things and have all of their thinking about how a customer is going to behave sorted out, and then find that edge cases happen that are completely out of their control. And you dug up an article that I had not seen about an unusual way in which people are interacting with their Apple Watch.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I still want to call an iWatch, but I know it's not an iWatch.
It's an Apple Watch.
It's an Apple Watch.
The article was in the Wall Street Journal, so I'm surprised you didn't see it, Steve, but I'm sure you don't read the papers online or in paper every single day.
And I don't own an Apple Watch. So the headline, even if I saw it, I wouldn't have necessarily gravitated toward it.
So I don't own an Apple Watch either. I've sort of found myself to be much more of a second-generation adopter of Apple products. I mean, I'm all in the Apple ecosystem, but I kind of think the first devices are not the best. Anyway, make a long story short, this article was about how they've noticed that, or I don't know who they is, but Apple or others have noticed that people are using their nose to turn the pages or do something. So basically they're going like this with the Apple Watch to respond to a text, and they noticed at first with people who were sort of working with their hands and had sticky stuff on their hands or dirt or whatever, and the watch would go off exactly, and they'd start tapping with their nose. So then you could try and come up with, different puns for nasal congestion or something else.
Here, let me text you. Hi, Bernie. But I think the point of the nose analogy is, and maybe touring people's refrigerators is a version of when we put all this stuff out there, people are going to behave as they're going to behave, and I don't think we're really going to know what entertainment looks like, what television looks like, what interaction with television looks like, until we're 3 to 5 years down the road from today. And a generation that didn't have access to all this live gear and all this camera gear and all of these iPhone live, cameras and other things actually settled in and starts using them in a way that, isn't just an edge case. I mean, what you don't know is whether or not, using the nose as an input device is an edge case, or going to become, are we all going to be walking down the street like this? And the answer is maybe.
Yeah, I would just say don't text with your nose when you're walking off a cliff. Yeah. I don't know if you saw the story a day or so ago in San Diego. Some guy was walking on the top of some 60-foot cliff, texting and walking, fell and died. So it's like, definitely be careful. And we will leave on the be careful note. Have a great New Year's, Bernie. Thank you for being a special guest host as opposed to an ordinary guest host. Thank you.